death of the dying. Whence comes this desire for death of the dying? That birth of the living is not in itself enough to overcome the knowledge of time and its end, but all time ends, every moment an end in itself, every movement an end in itself, for the beginning of new times that align minds by their projected timelines, for their living in relation to their dying, the pocket from which the creation of hopes and dreams unrealized, of reflected memories and ponderings muse about our absorptions in the pleasures and pains of noticing sunlight break through the rain clouds to know that it might never come again. Never again will time align at just the right mind in such the right way for a striking image to be seen twice, because in each movement there is a new and an old, a fading memory discovering the possibility of new memories. Whence comes this desire for death of the dying? That birth of the living is not in itself enough to overcome the knowledge of time and its end, but all time ends, every movement an end in itself, for the beginning of new times that align minds by their projected timelines, for their living in relation to their dying, the pocket from which the creation of hopes and dreams unrealized, of reflected memories and ponderings, musing about our absorptions in the pleasures and pains of noticing sunlight break through the rain clouds to know that it might never come again. Never again will time align at just the right mind in such the right way for a striking image to be seen twice, because in each movement there is a new and an old, a fading memory discovering the possibility of new memories. And yet again there is movement, still and eternal, timeless as far as we are concerned, for this ape, conscious of its own predicament, can only marvel at this unlikely evolution, capable of great abstractions of fears and silence and beauties and excitements, a deep solitude and even deeper communion, reconciling the extremities of personality, opinions, facts, and the madness of belief regarding our relationship to who we are, and those we meet across paths that were walked by those of the living and those of the dying. Friendship, estrangement, obligations, compromise, desire, abstracted ideals for a time never to be realized, only to be passed by as the timeless moves, and the moment is movement and the road is death, dying every now to the idea of time, then revealing presence as the only present reality of any consequence. For there is the dance of silent laughter in the encroaching madness, and the music of the blind reflecting their vision in the deafening darkness. As time moves along, a walking trail of space is left, and I am baffled, intrigued, and pained by the remnants of subjective wakes, ancient thoughts, ancient loves, ancient homes, symbols of devotion, ruins of conquest, justified action in the name of names, for lovers divine, sublime, and a piece of the pie beyond time. We arrived, having worked through the threads that led us to the present, only to find that our realities are undone and on repeat, remade to expire. Thus began the race against time, with time in time, for time beyond the time of every creature in existence, with their unique wanderings about a planet, a cosmos, a habitat, and compatriots in the land of living, shared by the knowers of dying, enraptured by their times between timeless moments, still and moving, the will of living for the life of the living. Hence came this desire for the death of the dying. tales of the mad, the wise, the children of time, absorbed in their pursuit for love and peace, magic and contradiction, creation and destruction. Tales of the mad, the wise, the children of time, absorbed in their pursuit for love and peace, magic and contradiction, creation and destruction. Tales of the mad, the wise, the children of time, absorbed in their pursuit for love and peace, magic and contradiction, creation and destruction. Chasing the light in fear of the darkness. Thus began the ending to the tale of humankind. Run away. You aren't ready for these waters. As a young boy, I met a poet, so I started writing to prove my worth. I found myself drowning in my words, identities, ideas, drowning in the depths of creation. I was overwhelmed out here in the deep while he stood there on the shoreline, my lifeline. He held on, but implored me to cut the line, to trust that I wouldn't drown, that fear was the only weight I needed to brave, that I was the cause and end of my drowning, that the waters were my friend, my power, the source of all that poetry just brimming below the surface, waiting to be written, waiting to be discovered, to be found. If only I stopped gasping for air, that just below, submerged in the storm, was a miracle, was the potential he knew I had. Another mind like his, the makings of a man with the wits and the will to make wonders from nothing. But I was afraid, and he pleaded, let go. He stood there for ages, growing old, but he wouldn't cut the line. He knew I had to do it on my own, that it was I who had it in me to find the strength, to take the plunge, to journey into the creation, to carve infinity from the eternal. He lamented over and over again, let go, my friend, you can do it. Let go, my friend, you can do it. I could see from afar, while the waves crashed around me, the grey in his hair. He had been standing there for eternity, for that one moment that stretched to infinity. I'll drown, I screamed. I'm drowning, I languished. I can't let go. What if I don't make it? Without this line, I have no way back. And I fear that without it, I won't find my way back. He stood there, patient and strong, but his strength was fading. Eons passed and yet he held on. Was it love? Was it loneliness? Was it the prospect of company? Was it the desire for beauty? These questions plagued me while I grappled with the weight at my feet and the lifeline that tethered me to reality. I was getting tired. I couldn't keep my head afloat for much longer. I feared I'd die before letting go, and that he would have to drag my corpse back to shore. I could feel his heart shattering over and over again. I was breaking his heart time and time again, but I couldn't let go. I wouldn't let go. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to swim with him, to sit around a fire and share our poetry. I wanted to hike a mountain with him and bask in existence. I wanted never to have met him. If I cut the line, I'd lose him. I'd lose myself. I'd lose my poems. I'd lose my love. I'd be lost. He'd worry. Did I drown? Did I find it? Was he responsible for my demise? How did he do it? Fear asked me. But I knew. He was as afraid as I was, and he did it anyway. So why couldn't I? Because I had met him, and I knew it could be done. So I'm stuck with knowing while he took the chance of oblivion and found communion, I faced oblivion looking for union without first passing through surrender. I am that artful dodge viper's faithful striker, daring to disrupt my practiced order. Go long and strong like a folk singer to labyrinth the ending of games and discard the making of names. Set sail, prevail, obtain, faith the ordained, claim, rate, accelerate a delicate pace to demonstrate, willing, dedicate the predicate, hesitate and set it straight. Ceaseless intentions, tremoring in existential flight, too skittish to finish the resolved, uninvolved, passive instinct, pleading for reprieve from the rational slaughter of fear. A fear felt so near, tears are too late to quench the thirst I fire. Breathless and in debt for the steps I check, lot of forces been stacked my deck, assaulted cause, the smokers reject, quake setting, select the stance. Stare down the barrel of chance, ring of fire creeping closer, while schemes of actualized bliss shimmer a distant glimmer, lost in the mist. Lucid dreams recollect my failed arrest when I stood stiff and shook, watching the waterways enter the stream, wading to the ocean for word knows, surging forward like a battalion horde of blood-soaked rivers, pent up, went up, sent up, and next up. Form the rock, scrum the flag, try the score. Is life worth this chore? Smoke to smoke, choke to cope, gag, fag, shag, disgust, desperate for containment, exhausted the statement, misgiven the treatment, released the fortified incel, mortified smoker, traumatized joker, organized stranger, taken to danger, hostile the neighbor, revulsion the fragrance, immersion the flavorsome, trapped in a prison, locked by the deeds, I hold the keys, with no gumption to fight. Worn down by the function of consumption, failed in the assumption. I'm tired, bitter, hateful, spite and resent. I hate the extent of the choices I regret. The deserted voices I detest, my vices to repent, those gone lovers I attest are the scorched flowers scorned by the craven depths of my soul. I cannot make whole the toll I've been sold, mischief, hoodwinked by the chief executive operator, having outsourced the service of moderator to the haunted modulator, smoky shackle restraints with scheduled shots of an uncertain anxiety, accompanied by the rush of a promised adrenaline. I'm found again, pulled back from the brink of asylum-worthy reveries until the craving cues the same and it's back in a strain, trembling at the prospect of having to tame a deafened silence. I ran shit-faced, headlong into a buried egoism, consoling the constituent element of courage to disown the corporeal rage of a primordial animating principality behind all these glorious lines, fragile twisted times, contorted personality, yet to earn the privilege of reciprocity. It's an utter atrocity when I duck from these lines for stimulant, medicated fears, tremors, tethers, paltry pleasures, convinced meandering bargains negotiated in the rush of an actively feeding addict. Consequent nourishment, nutritionally deficient, to sustain prolonged substance decimating, decadent, the destitute desolation of desperation. for dancing my immolation by my own volition. Begin the demolition, dismantle the solution, abandon the delusion of a demanded restitution. Abandon the delusion of a demanded restitution. Begin the demolition. Dismantle the solution for dancing my immolation by my own volition. Decadent the destitute desolation of desperation for dancing my immolation by my own volition. Begin the demolition. Dismantle the solution. Abandon the delusion of a demanded restitution. I've reprimanded every piece of strife that I find. Beseech my eyes from a thoughtful dream state, envisioned like a clean slate, commissioned by the great words incarnate. Alas, I hesitate to delegate. I cannot dedicate devoted practice to the kid who wet his bed. For the life of me, I'm stoned beyond reprieve. Internally, I grieve. He missed the trapeze and broke his wrist. Ever since then, the daring coward became the ever-forsaken subject of my carnation. Listen for the movement. Hold still the amusement. Initiate, launch the increment, and literate an iterated commitment proved by the alternate. Woken to amnesia, the daring coward shows his true colors in the maw of deprivation, with an aggravated exhilaration, praying the riddance of incinerated vapors in a ritualized plot to survive and thrive, quietly cooked in between the period of a pipe's dream. Like a mirage in drought, cardinal virtuosos plague daymares for my ravenous creatures, to shame and hell with my sentient features. Washed in the corrosive waters of guilt, I'm caught in the loop of whimpering at my decisions, revealing the mental efforts of substitution for nutrition, the psychic endurance to withstand scathed and dismembered, psychotic raving lunatic too afraid to contain, chronicled by embers of uncooked meals and blinded by the flood of flashing images, smashing rhythmics delivered like the mechanics of genetic arithmetics. My lofty wills levitate as they saturate smoky truths. I am subsumed by the choice I consume, by the life I refuse when I'm aching to move with the certainty that I will fail to maintain, choosing again. I'm a derelict, poster child for internal neglect, erosion, reflect, turbulence, eternally consecrated demons and omens fill my wakened odes, threading me a noose for the suffocating effect, refusing my suicidal impulse to go out with a blowout, feeling breathless in the smokeless, routeless, head stress, honing a voyage, threading me a noose for the suffocating effect, refusing my suicidal impulse to go out with a blowout, feeling breathless in the smokeless, routeless, head stress, honing a voyage, writhing inside like a restless rampage, threat, escape, simply caged. An avoided alliteration, acted agency, I'm succumbing, shivers facing time extended of distances never traveled. Epiphany recoils in empty nerves, with retaliated calibration, crucible paths chosen, when time is short-lived by a deadline, months in a haze, wrapped in the maze after waking, with an imperative to slave and pretend that I blaze on a broken promise never made, because this procrastinator will stay sedated for every and all foreseeable future under the guise of a false student, supported by the crutch of hope, for titanic thoughts tormented by torture of anticipation, with a naively cynical, fatalistic, expectant plea of desperation that screams, stop trying. For a fool does not become wise in folly until he stops trying to wholly outwit the assured gamble of an addict in shambles, brain mushed in a scramble stew of chanted fumes, ensnared in the mystique of mistaken satiety I dare to cover, having never intercepted the inception of a romanticized fixation, vowing to a smoker's retribution by an eloquent elocution for my intent contained to an uttered falsehood. I have no probability, and yet I hope to wake free from a smoker's dream. I have no probability, and yet I hope to wake free as a smokeless fiend and enter the stream, as a smokeless fiend.